Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's great to see everybody in person, and I know there's a lot more coming. They're stuck in traffic, and we could tell by their tags outside that they're on their way. They haven't canceled. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody interact really over the course of this meeting, which I hope you'll all find very enjoyable. Before getting started, I'd like to thank our co-chairs for today's conference, Drs. Stephanie Michaud, Stephen Sundquist, Michael Duong, and of course Winston Chung, who worked together with members of our team over a very long period of time throughout the course of this year, who include Carol Broman, who's here, Anne-Marie Wright, of course, Karine Legault, who's floating around, Natasha Bassett Saltarelli, Holly Collins, Iris Carey. It sounds like we have this huge team. We do have a good, tight team. And Nicola Hakim, who's around, who helped plan this event as well. So many people worked together to make this event not only lasting for today, but it is being videoed, and we'll have the video in order to take apart in pieces so that you will be able to use different segments from different presentations for your own purposes as well. I'd like to thank, of course, all of our sponsors who are listed on the screen. Once again, not only for your financial support, but really for, in many cases, your personal contributions on behalf of patients throughout the year. Many of you are here today, and we're truly grateful for your dedication to cancer patients across Canada. This year, unfortunately, we will see about 234,000 people diagnosed with cancer, and about 85,000 of them will die from it. Cancer is the leading cause of death in Canada, and it's responsible for 28.2% of deaths in this country. 2 in 5 Canadian men and women are expected to develop cancer, and about 1 out of 4 are expected to die from it. I mean, just think of it, 1 in 4. It's crazy numbers. Consequently, we have an obligation to do everything possible to prevent where possible and to treat patients with the most effective treatments to improve their outcomes. 8 years ago, many of us present here today recognized that with the advent of molecular profiling and precision medicine to treat cancer, patients and patient groups, researchers and clinicians, and our partners in the industry would have to work in concert to ensure clinical trials would meet the needs of patients so that patients would have timely access to these new innovations in Canada. As we identify smaller and smaller subgroups of patients that can benefit from these precision treatments, we recognize increasing needs to develop new ways to conduct clinical trials in more decentralized fashions and to allow for greater access for patients to these trials. We knew as well that we would have to find new ways to interact more closely with our regulator, Health Canada, and the HTA agencies, CADTH and DINES here in Quebec, to ensure that we would work towards a common goal of increasing access to new innovations to improve outcomes and to provide real-world evidence to reduce uncertainty from clinical trials using new methodologies and real-world evidence. We're going to hear a lot about that as well from some of the most experienced people in this country. We did not, however, anticipate how COVID might affect the ways in which clinical trials were done, nor the possibilities of global participation in these new trials. Many of you here today have played and continue to play a leading role towards achieving these goals, and I'm pleased to say that today we are seeing greater collaboration than ever before between all stakeholders. Inspired by the work of the Clinical Trials Transformation Initiative at Duke University in the United States, a small group of stakeholders that eventually became to be known as PACT, or Patient-Centered Approach to Clinical Trials, worked together with you, in many cases, to create a Canadian version of the city model and to include both the patient and patient group in the clinical trial continuum. This model calls for patients and patient groups to be engaged from the ideation of a clinical trial to the development of the trial protocol, working together with trial sponsors and researchers to ensure better recruitment and support of patients throughout the trial, and to collect patient preferences and even real-world data post-trial to help to reduce these uncertainties. And that's a type of information that we as patient groups need in order to better inform the HTA industry or agencies. Not only in Canada, actually, but now internationally, due to these new collaboration agreements that the HTA bodies have primarily between Australia, NICE, Canada, and a few other countries who have similar HTA processes. To support the implementation of the model PACT, the PACT group designed a charter to govern the relationship between trial sponsors, researchers, patients, and patient groups. And the charter contains actually 5 tenets that many of you who were present at our previous meetings helped to work on to establish. And they are to make patient centricity a norm in clinical trials, to support education, training, and development of patient groups to participate in trials, to promote the collaboration with patient groups as equal and independent partners in clinical trials, adherence to transparency and accountability from trial sponsors, and maximizing the potential of real-world evidence. The work of the PACT group continues throughout the year as we explore opportunities to implement the model and other ways to navigate and increase access to clinical trials for the benefit of all patients, and you are all welcome to join as either partners or collaborators in this initiative. This year, once again, we're inspired by the work done by the Clinical Trials Transformation Initiative, and we have Sarah here who's going to be talking about it in depth. And we're exploring opportunities in Canada of embedding clinical research into clinical practice, as evidenced by the recommendations developed by the city model at Duke University. At present, clinical trials largely function independent from clinical practice and limit both access to them as well as equity, diversity, and inclusion of the participants. Embedding clinical trials into clinical practice can help enable evidence-based quality care and reduce clinical trial inefficiencies. Many barriers exist, however, that have to be overcome, be it cultural, administrative, financial, or data-related barriers to achieve these goals. We can learn from embedded trials and embedded interventional trials that came to light during the past years during COVID to overcome these barriers, however. Over the course of the next 2 days, we will be discussing how this lofty goal may be achieved and learn from experts, both from afar and here in Canada, about how we might approach that goal. During the course of our conversations, I'd ask each of you to think about how, from your own personal perspective in the areas that you work in, you can contribute to this approach, what new tools may be required to do so, and how we can ensure patient centricity along the lines without forgetting at any time of the process that the patient is really the focus of this initiative. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our guests, speakers, and panelists who have taken their time to come from far away from the UK, the US, and of course from the rest of Canada to help us better understand the challenges and the potential benefits in this endeavor. Thank you as well to my fellow PACT members and steering committee members that include Stephanie Michaud, Stephen Sundquist, Martine Elias, Sabrina Hanna, Richard Feisel, Judy Needham, and Sarita Ben-Shamal. And of course, absent from the steering committee right now, but helped to develop the initiative as well, were Karen Arts from N2 initially, Dominic Johnson, and Vach Bardican. Most of our team will be here today to answer your questions about PACT as well, so feel free to interact with them as well on that initiative. Enjoy the conference, and I look forward to interacting with all of you during these next few days, as well as post-conference, when the real work actually starts to get done, so that we can work towards embedding clinical research into clinical practice for the benefit of all patients. And now I'd like to introduce our facilitator, Anne-Marie Wright, who's been doing this for the last 7 years with us, among other projects, and who's going to come up now and introduce our agenda for the day and some of our speakers. Anne-Marie?